Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're diving into two potential cancer treatments you might be wondering about. High dose intravenous vitamin C, or IVC for short, and ivermectin. We're going to break down the science, see what's legit and what's hype, and, help you understand why it's always good to be a little skeptical out there.
Especially with something as important as cancer treatment, right? You
Yeah.
really don't want to mess around.
Exactly. So let's start with IVC. Now, everyone knows vitamin C. It's supposed to be good for your immune system. Like when you feel a cold coming on, what do? You grab some orange
Ah,
juice?
a classic.
Totally.
Yeah.
But we're not talking about your regular vitamin C pills here. We're talking huge doses pumped right into your veins. And get this idea has actually been around for decades. It was first proposed back in the 70s by double Nobel Prize winner Linus Pauling. Like the Linus Pauling.
That's a big name in science for sure. But even with his reputation, people were skeptical. The early studies just weren't good enough, and there wasn't much evidence to back up the theory.
So what changed? Why are we even talking about IVC for cancer now?
Well, some recent lab studies have kind of brought it back into the spotlight. It turns out that high doses of IVC, like really high concentrations, might be able to zero in on cancer cells and destroy them. And the best part is, it doesn't seem to harm healthy cells as much. It's almost like a smart bomb that only targets the bad guys.
Okay, that does sound pretty impressive, but how does it even work? What makes IVC so good at attacking cancer cells specifically?
Well, it all comes down to how cancer cells are different. They're kind of like the rebels of the body, right? They're constantly multiplying, wreaking havoc, ignoring all the rules.
Little chaos.
Yeah, exactly. But just like any good villain, they have a weakness. Cancer cells have a different metabolism than normal cells. And because of that, they're more vulnerable to damage from high doses of vitamin C.
Mm.
It's kind of like sending in a secret agent that only the cancer cells recognize as a threat.
So it's not like the vitamin C itself is toxic, it's just that the cancer cells are kind of programmed to self-destruct when they encounter it in those amounts.
Yeah, you got it. And there have been a few small studies with actual humans that have shown some promising results, like people having a better quality of life, and even some cases where they lived longer.
That's got to be encouraging, right?
It is. But, and this is super important, those studies were small. We need larger, more rigorous trials before we can say for sure that it really works.
So no ditching your chemo for a vitamin C drip just yet.
Not so fast. But it is a good reminder that science is always changing. What they thought was crazy decades ago might actually be the next big thing in cancer treatment.
And that's why we're here, to dig into the research and keep you updated. All right, so we've covered the whole high-dose vitamin C thing, but now let's talk about another possible weapon against cancer, ivermectin.
Yeah, you might recognize that name from all the pandemic stuff, but we're not going there today. We're focusing on its potential for treating cancer.
Right, got to stay on target. Now, ivermectin is already used pretty widely.
For parasites, yep. Works like a charm for that. But here's where it gets interesting. Some preclinical studies, the lab research, animal studies, that sort of thing, suggest it could actually have some anti-cancer properties too.
Okay, so it's early days, but it's got to be pretty interesting stuff if it's got researchers excited. What are we talking about here? What are they seeing?
Well, imagine this, right? Ivermectin going after cancer in a bunch of different ways. Like some studies show it might be able to stop those cancer cells from multiplying so they can't grow and spread as easily.
Ah, so cutting off the supply lines.
Exactly. And it gets even crazier. There's research showing it might actually make the cancer cells self-destruct.
Whoa, like a self-destruct button inside the cancer cells themselves.
Yeah. But wait, there's more. It might also block the cancer from spreading to other parts of the body. At least that's what some early research suggests. So it's kind of like a triple threat to cancer, theoretically anyway.
Okay, that does sound almost too good to be true. What's the catch?
Well, the catch is, and it's a big one, most of this research, they're using super high doses of ivermectin. Way higher than what's safe for people.
So don't go running to the vet for a refill just yet.
Definitely not. Plus, we got to remember, we need those big, well-run trials with actual humans before we can say for sure how well it really works against cancer in people.
So kind of like IVC, we need more research to say for sure. Seems to be a theme here.
It definitely is. Just because something looks good in a petri dish or works in mice doesn't mean it's going to translate to humans. It's a long road.
Yeah, you don't want to get ahead of yourself. But what if you combine the two? The IVC and the ivermectin. Could that be the winning ticket?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. And luckily for us, that's exactly what we're going to be digging into after the break.
So we've got these two potential cancer fighters, IVC and ivermectin, both looking pretty good in the lab, but both needing more research before we know for sure, which kind of makes you wonder, what if you use them together?
Right. Like, could you get a 1-2 punch, knock out the cancer with a double whammy?
Exactly. Is that even possible?
Well, that's what researchers are trying to figure out. The thinking is, since IVC and ivermectin seem to work in different ways, attacking the cancer cells from different angles,
Yeah.
maybe using them together could be, like, super effective.
Oh, so they work even better together.
Yeah. Synergistic effect, they call it. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts and all that.
Makes sense. But I'm guessing it's not that simple. Huh.
Yeah, you got to be careful, right? It's your health we're talking about.
Yeah,
Anytime you're messing around with treatments, especially combining them, there's always a risk.
of course. So what kind of risks are we talking about?
Well, for one thing, combining treatments can make the side effects worse. And we don't really know how IVC and ivermectin might interact with each other or with other cancer treatments like chemo or radiation.
So it's not just about whether each individual thing works, it's how they all work together.
Exactly. It's like you can't just throw a bunch of ingredients in a pot and hope for the best. You got to know what you're doing, right?
Makes sense. So for our listeners out there, maybe they're dealing with cancer themselves or know someone who is. What's the takeaway here? This is a lot to take in.
It is. It's a lot of maybes and what ifs, which I know can be frustrating.
Yeah.
But that's exactly why we need more research, those good quality clinical trials to really understand the potential here and the limitations too, of course.
So we need to know if the benefits outweigh the risks.
Yep. And in the meantime, don't go doing anything drastic based on something you read on the internet. Talk to your doctor. They can give you the best advice for your situation.
So while we might have more questions than answers right now about IVC and ivermectin, I think one thing's for sure, it's always a good idea to be informed and stay curious.
Absolutely. Keep asking questions, keep learning.
And on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. What if we're on the verge of a whole new era of cancer treatment, where instead of just hitting it with everything we've got, we can use targeted therapies to outsmart it? Pretty amazing stuff. Until next time, stay curious, everybody.